On this episode of Radcast Outdoors, we sit down with legendary fisherman, Hall of Famer, and co-founder of In-Fisherman, Lindy Equipment, co-owner of Lindner Media, Al Lindner. Of course, everybody knows Al from his days on In-Fisherman and has seen him on a number of different TV shows, including The Angling Edge. And on this episode of Radcast Outdoors, we sit down, we visit with him about a number of different topics, including fishing, family, fame, his faith, and of course, what are his favorite things to fish for to this day. We hope you'll sit down, relax, and enjoy this episode of Radcast Outdoors.
Fish on! Hey, Radcast is on!
Hunting, fishing, and everything in between. This is Radcast Outdoors. From the Porter's 10Cast studio, here are David Merrill and Patrick Edwards.
Again, Al, it's great to have you on the program. I do want to give a quick shout out to Danny Kurttila, my cousin, for helping set this up with Al. That was kind of a big deal. And
thanks, Danny.
Yeah, so I really appreciate Danny. And Al, just want to welcome you to the show. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us on a podcast for a little bit.
Hey, I'm looking forward to it. There's nothing makes me happier than a cold day in Minnesota. If I can't be out fishing, I should be talking about fishing. It's going to be well below zero tonight, so...
So, Al, that's probably one of the big motivations for Patrick and I to start this podcast is we both have young families and we're both avidly into the outdoors, whether it's fishing, hunting, or a little bit of both. So that's our goal is to, recruit new anglers and new hunters to the outdoors.
Well, the timing is really appropriate for it. Yeah, we've got a whole new recruitment coming in because of COVID, like our sport has never seen before. Experience in the outdoors, and they need some guidance in a lot of cases to respect the resource, and that's an important part of what's happening now with these whole lot of these newbies coming in.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch you over the years because you've really helped kind of teach everybody about that. And I know as a kid, I always looked forward to Outdoor Life coming in the mail and also In-Fisherman magazine, because that was kind of the thing was, I wanted to learn more about fishing. And growing up in Cheyenne, Wyoming, it was like a dead zone of fishing. I mean, there's really not much close unless you're going to drive like 2 hours to Glendo, 3.5 hours to Seminole, 5 hours to Boyson. Like you just forget about it. There's just nothing there. So you talk about teaching people. I was reading that as much as I could because I knew when I went, I had to really capitalize on those trips. And so you've done an amazing job about that. And I just wanted to know if you could just share some tips with us. What's some key strategies of getting kids and just other anglers out on the water? What are some good strategies and tips?
The number one, make sure you take them when you can get them bit. Stable. I can't emphasize how important that is, especially with the younger ones that have short attention spans. And it is critical that bobber is going down or something's pulling on the end of that line. And that's one of the key. And even with new adults, and we have a lot of those coming into the sport now that have never fished before. And yes, they have patience where the young people don't. However, their patience will wane after 1 or 2 trips without getting a bite. It's the biggest hindrance that I've seen to our sport. And there are people not. The key is getting a bite to light that fire. They got to catch something. And you don't want to take them out in miserable weather conditions. You have the weather good and do everything in your power to make sure that they get bit. And the reason people fish and continue to fish is they had a good experience, and the good experience is something pulling on the end of their line. That's really the reason you're out there. That's what motivates people. It's the miracle of a fish. It is amazing to me my entire life in this business to see what a fish can do to change somebody's life. A kid sitting on the dock catching bluegills, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a 2-pound bass runs out from under the dock and grabs your bait. You never had, you're catching, 6-inch bluegills and having a ball, and out of this bass is there. You hook it, breakaway, you land it, change your life forever. Somebody that never muskie fished. Yeah, you know, they heard something about it. They're going out with somebody that knows something about it. All of a sudden, next to the boat, this monster opens his mouth and bites on it. It's an image that burns into your spirit that you never change. It never goes away. That's what lights the fire in this sport, and that's why it's so important to and in the good weather to do it. And that's the key, is to get them action. And then if they're really young, you know, after 2-3 hours, you know, they like to think around in a live well. You get a few fish around. All kids like that. They're fascinated with fish bouncing around in a live well.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that's the key. It really is the key, to keep them motivated and keep them fishing their action in a short period of time. You know, and again, with the adult or even a young person, after you know, you get them out for 2 trips, the third time, you're going to say, "You want to go fishing with me today?" They have 2 bad experiences, and they're going to go back and play video games. You know, the interest won't be there.
So, Al, I was fortunate enough to grow up near saltwater, and my dad in the Pacific Northwest, we did a lot of salmon and halibut in deep sea, and I got introduced very young to fishing. We actually just had a podcast with my dad on talking about, you know, starting that fire that you're talking about. I'm curious, who was the fishing mentor in your life, the person that got you hooked on fishing?
Actually, my brother is 10 years my senior, and he took me everywhere from the time I was a little kid. Yeah, you know, he's seen a burning passion. He shared that. He says there was something about it from the time you were little. You were obsessed with fish and fishing, and he nurtured that. He actually nurtured that. In him being 10 years older than I am, yeah, you know, he kind of took me under his wing, and I had some really good experiences in those years. One of them that really fed my passion for fishing was my mother. And this is kind of strange, but I mean, I got to share that story with you. My brother obviously loved to fish. Yeah, you know, so he took me everywhere we could go. We fished all of the ponds and lakes and creeks and rivers in between Chicago and Milwaukee, and there's many of them. And we were out every moment we could go. He'd be able to go away. He took me. But my mother really liked to fish, and she's seen. You know, people would ask me, you know, at a young age, what do you'd go to a Christmas gathering, a family or friends like this, and they'll say, "Hey, Al, you know, a conversation. Yeah, what are you going to do when you grow up?" And I boldly come, "I'm going to make a living fishing. That's what I'm going to do." And they kind of look at you, "Oh, okay, yeah, you know," and blow it off. And my mother, she under the guidance of my brother, she at Christmas time or birthdays or special events, every time all my Christmas presents and gifts were the latest, greatest fishing tackle in the industry. Whether it was a rod, a reel, a lure, magazines, books, anything that she fed that and fed it and fed it. Never said, "Well, that's a dumb thing. How are you going to make a living in the fishing industry?" Yeah, you know, especially at that time, you know, that many years ago. Yeah, you know, and you know, the only thing you had tackle manufacturers, you had outdoor writers that at that time, one of the inspiring outdoor writers to me as a kid was Jason Lucas. He wrote for Sports Afield at that time, and he wrote a book called Lucas on Bass, and I'll bet you I read it a dozen times at least, and marked every page. That thing, the experience is burned into my mind. On that. So, yeah, you know, it's experiences like that. Then television. I remember pioneers of the TV fishing business. The first one, his name was Gadabout Gaddis, the Flying Fisherman. He was the first one that had syndicated television fishing shows. And he'd fly to different locations all over the country and share his fishing experience. Gadabout Gaddis. And then that led to Virgil Ward. That was the true championship fishing, and he was the one that lit my fire to get into the fishing industry and do a television show in the business. He was here in my hometown in Brainerd, Minnesota, when we were starting Lindy Tackle Company, and his producer, his name was Dave Jadwin. He gave us a call at the office one day, and he says, "Hi, I'm Dave Jadwin. I'm with Virgil War Championship Fishing. We've been in the area for 3 days, and we want to do a walleye show on jigs, Bass Buster jig." And he says, "Can you help us out? I understand you know the lakes. You're a really good fisherman. Everybody says go call Al if you want one." So I says, "We'll do a show." I said, "Absolutely." So we went out. We got a phenomenal show shot in 4 hours. He got everything done. He's all happy. He took off and went back to Missouri, and we finished that. My brother looks at me that night. We're talking. He says, "That's great." He does a television show and talks about the lures that he manufactures. I says, "We could do that. We got Linda. Why don't we start a television fishing show and help Linda?" That's what lit our fire and got us into the business of doing TV fishing shows. That was it. That trip went. We bought a camera. That's what camera, and my brother learned how to use it and how to splice tape together. You're shooting with film at that time. You had rewind.
Yep.
So these stories on how you get into the game and into the fishing industry and into the sport and the different aspects that are available. All you get these different stories from everybody that has been fortunate enough to make a living in business. But I'll go back to what I said just a little bit earlier. It just amazes me what just a fish, could do to change somebody's life. Astounding to me how it happens all the time. One experience with a fish, and just bam, yeah,
Yep.
Your life is changed by it.
Yeah, I agree. It's an amazing experience. I remember catching fish when I was little and how it lit my fire. And again, I promised that I would do this on the podcast, and I hope it's not lost, because you hear this stuff a lot. But my friend Seth Ewing, who lives in northern Idaho, and myself, we grew up just eating up your shows and the magazine, and it really did benefit both of us. He's an incredible fly fisherman, and he learned a lot from your fly fishing video that you guys put out with Dahlberg, and and I love the smallmouth and the walleye and those kind of species. And so it's just one of those things where I hope it's not lost on you when you hear us say, thank you so much for doing all of that, because it really did inspire a lot of people across the United States and the world to go out and fish and to take other people fishing, which I think is really cool. One of the things that I always enjoyed, and my dad and I always enjoyed watching you fish, was just the joy on your face. You were always, chuckling and laughing and having a great time. And we were just living vicariously through you as the wind blew about 70 miles an hour through Cheyenne, Wyoming. But I mean, it's just, it really did make a big difference. And I want to ask about this, because this is really important to David and I. We both have little kids, and we take them out, fishing, hunting, different activities. And, you have kids of your own, and I know he's very influential and big into the fishing business as well. But can you talk a little bit about what that was like, raising your kids to be fishermen, but also, kind of raising them during that time that, you're just so busy and you got all these things going on with the fishing world and the fame that you had going on. How did you manage all those things and still make it a great experience for your kids?
Well, they grew up in the business. They did. There's not, all seven. Ron had 7 children. I've got 2 boys. All of the kids, even the girls, 3 of his kids are girls, they all served in the business doing something. Yeah. From the time we started Lindy Tackle Company, they were pouring sinkers and learning how to tie snells, wrap them on cars. They were exposed to the business. It's a family-run business. All their life. And they grew up, and many of them went in different fields, and did other things. But a number of them stayed in the business and are in the business today, like Jimmy and Danny and Billy and my son Troy. And my Dawn niece, who worked as a PR director for us for many, many years at In-Fisherman, and still helps me write material and press releases and things like that. She's really gifted in that area. Yeah, but they grew up in the business, and that way you were able to spend time together. So they understood it. They understand the travel and the things that encompass the lifestyle. if you want to make a living, a good, comfortable living in the fishing industry, in the same sense that I don't hunt myself, but I know many people that do, and I do know that end of the business relatively well because there's similarities to it. These days, it's a lifestyle business that you want to get into, and it encompasses a lot of time. It isn't a 9 to 5 job. You eat, sleep 24 hours or so. You go to bed at night thinking, and I'm still today. I've been in this all my life. There is not one single day that goes by that I don't read something about fishing, watch something about fishing, talk to somebody about fishing. It happens all the time. Not a day goes by where some aspect of it isn't touched in my life, a part of my life. And my closest friends are pretty much involved in the fishing industry.
So
my closest friends are.
That sparks a question for me, Al, and that's, I'm kind of way beginning of this journey. I've got a small family-run company, but it's in the hunting outdoor space, and, my boys are being raised growing up. We work, right? We have stuff to do. It's a small family-run business.
Sure.
It's not, Dad goes to work at 9 and we're done at 5 and let's go do X and Y. But my question is, long term, for me, my dad took me fishing a lot and now I go hunting. And now my boys are in a hunting company being raised. How did you see kind of the transition of with raising these kids in the company, in the fishing industry? Have they stayed on and continued to fish and still thrive? Was that a positive experience for them?
Oh, yes. Yeah. For a number of them. Now, there's some of them that it was not. I'll use my 2 boys as an example. My oldest son, Sean, and it was not. And he just shared with me. I'll give you my first experience with him. He was raised in the business. He worked in it, worked his way through until he went off to college in it, but he never was interested in fishing. His passion, in his case, was things that moved fast. Snowmobiles, motorbikes, 4-wheelers, dirt bikes. This is what he loved to do.
Sounds like we'd get along pretty well.
That's what he loved to do. Troy, on the other hand, but from the time he was a little tiny kid, you could see the seed of. He would be on the dock in front of our house here, day and night, catching bass on frogs and just running up and down the bank catching. He loved it from the time he was 4 or 5 years old, and it never changed. He absolutely loved. And I just think that God created us all slightly different with different interests, and that's a good thing.
You had one boy in the garage tinkering on motors and going faster, and you had another guy you couldn't keep at the house. He was taking his fishing pole, and he was to the water at 4 and 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you have to, as a parent, you have to respect that. I respect that. They have to be their own person and seek out the things, and they all had different, that those different interest levels impacted their life as they were growing up, and led in some cases to what they're doing today. Again, my son Troy is into it in a lot of different areas, and my oldest son. And interestingly, he liked, even as a kid, he loved living on the edge. He loved the excitement of a snowmobile race and that. He'd get so pumped on that. And today he's a paramedic. He's a wilderness paramedic, and he's fighting fires in California. And he loves the game, man. He likes that. He likes living on the edge. I get it. To me, I like living on the solitude of a lake and that's my peace and contentment. That's what I really like.
I imagine. And, I follow Troy on social media, and that guy is always out doing something, and he's an incredible fisherman. I mean, it's
multi-species. Yeah.
Man.
He loves it's just anything, anywhere, anyway. And he loves digging around in offbeat places, for lack of he's got rods. He's got pack rods, and no matter where he goes, he's carrying rods. He sees a body of water anywhere, anything that could hold the fish. He just drives off on the side of the road and he goes fishes. Anywhere as he's traveling around the country, that's with him.
Yeah, because he
loves doing that.
Yeah,
stuff.
he spent some time out west, and I know he's fished some areas where I've been, and it's just kind of cool to see that. And I do want to ask you a question about that. Everybody has some of those favorite moments. What was a favorite moment for you fishing with your kids that you can recall?
the years, I'll go with Troy. Oh, I'll give you my oldest son that never got turned on to it. And here's one of the mistakes I made with him. There was a series of bass tournament series starting in Minnesota a zillion years ago. It was called the North Star Bass Tournament Tour. And when he was about 4 years old, I took him pre-fishing. Mary and I got a cabin on a lake, and I took him pre-fishing for that tournament with me. And he had a Snoopy rod. And I had a white spinnerbait. And it was, it was cool. We were up in the morning. It was out a cool day, thinking around. He's dragging this spinnerbait through the water, and I'm trying to catch some fish. And then after a little while, I just said something to him. We're going to move. How you having? You want to go in anything? He's holding the rod, a little bit cold, and he looks at me. He looks at the rod. He throws it in the side of the boat and looked at me again. I got the message. And he said, Dad, you burned me out so bad.
And so I think there's a balance there, Al, where, yeah. So, my dad took me steelhead fishing, and I've got quite a few steelhead to my name. And if anybody out there knows steelhead, they can be finicky and tricky fish to catch. I mean, the passion for catching them is kind of gone. I've been wore out steelhead fishing, and I've seen this in the hunting industry where you get some guys that are have some prowess and are pretty successful. They take their 16, 17-year-old son out, and he shoots a world caliber elk, and 10 years later he's not into elk hunting. He's into fishing or snowmobiling or something else.
Those are all those images. The other side of that story with Troy, you said, what are the experiences? For a number of years, we as a family, a number of us went up and we fished some tournaments in Canada, a Rainy Lake on the Minnesota-Canadian border, and another one out of Kenora on the top end of Lake of the Woods. And we fished some team tournaments up there. And over the years that we had fished that thing as a group together, Ron fished with one of his sons, Jimmy and Billy. Two of his other boys fished together. Ron fished with Danny. I fished with Troy. And we look forward to these team tournaments every year. Up there, and we won a number of them. And Jimmy and Billy won two of them back to back. And those weeks, the week of pre-fishing leading into that tournament, and that was we must have done that for 15 years. Yeah, and it was the highlights of our trip together with all of us as a family together. And each one of us, every one of them, when I talk to the boys, inclusive of Troy now, he says that was some of the most enjoyable experiences we ever had. And all of us at one time or another did really good. Troy and I did a couple seconds and thirds, and I did win one with him in California. And when I had an opportunity to fish with him, those times that we were in those events burn memories that they talk about still till.
Yeah, and those trips are really important with father and a son. I know with my dad, we had an annual trip that we would take to Flaming Gorge, and that always meant the world to me because we'd spend 5 or 6 days out on the gorge just fishing and not worrying about all the other stuff, the work and stresses of life. And I had told you in an email about a trip to Boyson. Just those kind of trips just make a huge difference in a young angler's life, and it definitely makes it something that makes them want to come back later.
And it burns into your spirit. You get so excited, and then you think about it so often. These things you keep revisiting that in your mind. Those are great experiences.
Yep, absolutely. And I wanted to touch on something else because we do try to help, young new people get into fishing and whatnot. And what are some tips that you give people when they're going to a brand new fishery and they've never been there before? What do you tell them to look for, and what are some tips that you give them?
Well, it's gotten a lot easier these days because of social media.
Yeah.
You could tap into local bites really. I mean, your pre-fishing research on lake levels and what the bite's been like recently, water clarity, satellite image, it is endless in comparison to what we had 50, 60 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was I lived through the changes that I've seen are staggering, in the business of what to look for. But you could do so much preliminary work. Getting on your computer, checking out Google Earth, going to local sites, hunting down the local reports that give you an idea of what the bite is like and what they're biting on. Yeah, even to depth preferences. That stuff today is in most cases these areas have a very dependable retail outlet. Mm-hmm. And that retail outlet is a great source of information. They don't hide stuff from people. They want you to have a good experience. And they have fishing reports that are done weekly, or there's things that are posted through their retail operation. So they give you the most up-to-date information you can possibly get. And it saves you so much time by doing a little bit of homework.
So Al, you've got to fish a lot of places in your lifetime. What was one of your favorite destinations? One place you want to go back, at this point so far?
Probably one of the greatest, a place that I would go back in. I had was a family went to Australia, and we fished barramundi, and we floated the rivers. My wife stayed. She didn't go in with us when we went into the jungle, and we did get a 3-day float. But I had my 2 boys with me, and we floated the rivers for barramundi. And we camped at night on the banks and stuff, and it was going through you'd see the Aborigine villages that you would thought these people would come into the river. You see these saltwater, that were it was an amazing experience. We fished out of the very tip of Queensland. With the river for barramundi was fun. The guy that we were with had a massive John boat, and I think if I remember right, we had like a 60 horsepower motor on it. And we took off out of tip of Queensland, and we went out. I don't know how many miles, 30 miles or so. It was in between there and New Guinea, and you had the 2 oceans met, and it was like a boil there. I've never seen so many fish in my life. And we got spooled on stuff. So it's a good thing we had backup equipment. I don't even know what. Okay, it was an unbelievable experience. And then we fished GTs, the Great Barrier Reef. A couple of days we did that, top water fishing for GTs. But that was probably one of the most memorable trips I've ever had. Again, my boys were old enough to remember that and enjoy it. And I've never been back again. I've never been back to Australia again to do that.
That sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Man, it was exciting. It was really exciting. Every day was a true adventure.
Oh man.
And that's one awesome thing about fishing is, whether you're going out your back porch to your little pond or, for me it was, we went to Alaska a couple times in my teenage years. Dad took us up to Prince of Wales Island, and you can either go on a short little, 10-minute trip around the corner and fish a canal right by your house, or you can go halfway across the globe and, go to Australia.
Mm-hmm. The opportunities are endless, and every one of them is special in its own way. And every fish is special in its own way. I work with some incredibly gifted anglers. Like Jimmy and Jeremy are hardcore muskie nuts. They love it. I mean, this is their fish of choice. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 12 months out of the year, they're on sites. They're always thought, where's the muskie bite? What's next year? Where's their planning? What their shoots are. But every one of us, my fish of choice is a smallmouth bass, and then I'll go to a walleye and a largemouth after that. And I enjoy musky fishing, but not like these guys do. I mean, that's their deal. And we got guys crappie fish that love crappie fishing, and I'm kind of favor what Troy. I like a little of everything, and in every case, everybody in our office, sometime throughout the year, goes and jerks some jaws on a carp. Mm-hmm. We all will get a carp bite in 1, 2, at least two times, at least. Yeah, something different, something out of the ordinary. And we're going to go catch some carp. And they pull, they're fun to catch, they're challenging at times. There's a lot of different ways to get them. Yeah, it's something I would not want to do every day. I like to mix it up. I like to catch a lot of different kinds of fish.
Yeah.
I can't do one thing. I like the variety. But carp are they're so they're fascinating fish, and I still in our country today, in the States, they in Europe and different places of the world, they're a big deal, especially the European nations. Mm-hmm. That's the money fish.
Yeah,
that's like our bass here. It drives the market in many cases. something silly like in some offbeat little places. Me and Troy will go around when I visit him. He'll take me to these shore fishing spots and little ponds. We mainly go carp fishing. You chum him, you see him for an afternoon. We'll go think around for 3 hours, 4 hours. Some offbeat places. He learned that when he was in Arizona. 4 years he went to college there. He learned all the inner city lakes. He didn't have the boats with him then until I'd come down with a boat. So all during breaks and classes, he found every single nook and cranny that had fish in and around the entire Phoenix area. And believe me, there was a lot of them. There was a lot of little ponds and stuff. And it was, it had carp, it had a moor, it had your standard run of carp. They all had bass, and largemouth bass in there, and they had bluegill in there, catfish. So we just dinked around shore fishing. That's where his love of bank fishing all developed. Those 4 years he went to school there, and all he did was bank fish all the time. And it was just fun. I would love to go do it with him. I got the greatest toys in the world on my Lund. I'm rigged out with everything you can imagine on the boat. The latest technology and everything. And there's a whole lot of times it's just a whole lot of fun to go beat a pond, fish from shore, and go catch some carp.
Absolutely.
It's fun.
This episode of Radcast Outdoors is brought to you in part by PK Lures. PK Lures makes some of the best fishing lures on the market. Their high-quality lures shine when others don't by helping you put fish in the boat or on the ice consistently. I've been using PK Lures successfully now for over 12 years, and I can personally attest to their effectiveness. When I'm ice fishing, you can bet that I have a PK Red Dot Glow jigging spoon or a Fire Tiger Glow jigging spoon tied on one of my rods. They've helped me catch many high-quality fish of various species from season to season. My favorite hardwater lures are the PK Spoon, PK Flutterfish, and Tungsten Predator. For open water, I love the PK Spinajig, PK Dakota Disc, and the next generation PK Ridgeline Crankbait. This past season, I was introduced to the PK Wobbler, which is also a really effective fish catching machine from the boat. They also have some incredible videos on their website, pklure.com, to show you exactly how to use these wonderful lures. So if you want to have a little more success out on the water and you want to help support a great company, please go to pklure.com. Again, that's pklure.com, and get your PK lures today. And please tell them that the Radcast Outdoors podcast sent you. So I was going to ask you, I've always wondered this, and I'm sure you've talked about it before, but, everybody's got their favorite method of catching a fish. Like, if you could catch a fish in any type of method in any species, I know you love the smallmouths. I love the smallmouths as well, but if you could catch a fish in any type of presentation, what's your favorite?
It's a jig.
A jig?
There's no question. Yeah, absolutely no question for me. No question whatsoever. A jig.
I remember watching you on, it was a walleye video and a bass video, just catching tons and tons of fish on those jigs. So I had a feeling it might be jigs.
For everything, whether I'm walleye, smallmouth, largemouth bass, big pike, some version of jigging for muskie done with tubes and big rubber baits. It's a jig, and a jig. I don't think there's a better way for all kinds of fish all the time anywhere. Of one style, one family of baits. Naturally, there's a lot that comes under the heading of a jig. But
sure.
It's a piece of lead of some kind with a dressing off of the back of it of some kind. It might weigh 4 ounces for lake trout. 100 feet of water, and it might be a 1/64th of an ounce for crappie.
A purple mylar jig will work pretty good for steelhead, but I'm preferential to top water dry fly stuff. I like to see that fish commit and come out of the water. That's just I did enough wet fly fishing that Patrick knows. We've gone on some high mountain lakes, and I really like to fool that fish to come up all the way out of the water.
It is any kind of topwater fishing, like for muskie or smallmouth or largemouth, anything. Rare occasions, pike get on a good topwater bite. Those are really fun.
If you want to be consistent year round, you gotta get beneath the surface of the water.
Yeah.
My biggest pike was I had a 53-inch pike, and this thing was monstrous, and it was Lake Nagelini. Larry Dahlberg. And he was filming when we were in there, and I got it on a buzzbait in the back of a cot in shallow water.
Wow.
And you talk about a memorable experience with that. And Larry's been everywhere to do everything. And he still thought about that. He says that pike was an unbelievable scene. And 53-inch pike we figured that this fish was mid 30 pounds, 35, 38 pounds, something like that. Maybe even much. It was gigantic. A gigantic fish for a pike. That was a topwater fish. I had a buzzbait of all things. That would
be a lot of fun. I'm like, wow, that sounds like a blast. But I wanted to change gears just a little bit. One of the things that I've admired about you for years is that you're not afraid to talk about your faith. And I think that that's a very important thing. And, I want to see if you could share just a little bit about your spiritual journey and how God has played a big role in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. The two most important parts of my life, and I share it all the time, it's fishing and my faith. They go hand in hand. Every day is part of my life. I integrated in what we do with the television shows. The impact that it I'll try to kind of quickly for you. Until the time I was 35 years old, I was a person that was not an atheist or an agnostic. I probably would have favored more. Definitely not an atheist, and I don't believe anybody that spends any amount of time in the outdoors anywhere can be an atheist. I think that's an impossibility. Yeah. but I had I was obsessed, and I guess that's the only word I could use. I was obsessed with fishing 24/7. That was all that, that's all I could. And our businesses were building at that point in time. And at 35, I started to get a tugging in my heart to like the Spirit of God was just tugging in my heart. I met people that turned their life over to the Lord, that were hard drinking people that I knew, hard partiers, and they were like a different person, night and day. And they started to talk to me about Jesus, God, forgiveness, stuff I never heard of before. But they're really, and it may sound dumb to a lot of people, but you got to understand, nothing, really knew nothing. And then I started to search. And I think my brother's life he got free of booze. He had a hard time to booze much of his life. And one day he turned his life over to the Lord, asked forgiveness for his sins. And I says, Lord, help me. I can't do it myself. I need your help. I need your direction on this thing. Guide me. And he made a confession of faith like that. And I see the impact on his life. And then for about 2 years, I wandered around. I studied the Word of God. The Bible became a challenging thing to me to get through little things like, could this really be real? Like so many people. Is this Bible, could this stuff really have happened? Is this thing real? Is there a guy, the foundation, this guy they call Jesus, who's the foundation, this thing? That he really is he who he says he is? Did he come for the reasons he said he did from beginning to end? And I started looking at this stuff, and one day God got out of my head into my heart, and it was never changed for the last 40 years. All I can say is, if you truly search, he's real, he's there, he loves you, he cares if someone's there. It's a real experience. The point is, you've got to get out of your head and into your heart and become real. And it's a part of my everyday life. I'm not ashamed of the gospel, and I share it openly, and that's who I am. And I can only share the experience that I had and how it impacted my life, my family, my outlook on business, my outlook on life, my relationship with my wife. And the older I get, the clearer and easier it is for me now to be more appreciative of my walk with the Lord and His grace and mercy.
So, Al, I've got a question, and it's I'm going to hyposit it this way. As starting my own business in the outdoor industry and walking in faith, how has that affected business decisions and just living in the limelight and outwardly expressing your faith? Is there ever moments of doubt? I mean, because in today's society and day and age, it's definitely not something that's widely accepted.
Are you saying if I had some kickback? Yes.
but what would be your advice? I mean, as far as just running a business and walking in faith.
Okay, I have. If you look at the marketing partners that I have, every single one of them, from boat, motor, rod, reels, lures, line, electronics, are right at the top of their field in their individual categories. Every one of them. And we've been with them for many, many, many years. some of them almost my entire career. And I've sat in corporate boardrooms all over the country, going over television stations, over television network and contract signed with these mega conglomerate corporations on it. Never have I had one of them say anything about my confession of faith on that show at all. Most of them have said they appreciated it and go for it. And one of the reasons for that is and some of them are not people of faith, but they are business people. And the bottom line is I sell stuff for them. That's what I sell stuff for them. I do my job for them. I do it with excellence. That's why they don't, so it's open. I had one major challenge with a network. It was with a network. And Jones, they didn't want me talking about God. That was the words that they came back and they said that it's interesting the way they did it. Notification. We played on this network for a number of years. And this particular year, our contract went just the way it always has. And we had 5 weeks into the show, and it was a Wednesday afternoon when I got contacted by the president of the network, and he says we're going to pull the show because of your religious stance on it. We don't believe it's what we want in the network anymore. This was on a Wednesday. I managed. They did this. They were going to pull it if we didn't. We re-edited everything. I re-edited everything. I had contracts signed with a bunch of sponsors, and I had to deliver the numbers in there. So we edited that show, and I got it on Friday night to air on that weekend, an entire re-edited version of the shows, and we continued it out. Our attorneys said, you've been with it. They wanted to take it to court. They said, you can't beat it. You ran for 5 weeks already. You did this for years. They never did it. They can't do this for this thing. And I talked to Ron and my wife and Dolores and his wife. No, we'll go through. If they don't want you there, says I don't want to be there if I don't want to be there. But they want us to be pulled off. They want to beat us on this thing. What we did, got the show to them. We made the changes. In our last end of the contract for the television season, we sent them a bill. They sent the bill for the airing on it. It came to us, and we sent them the bill. We billed them back for the editing changes we had to make. Sent it back. I never heard from them. I didn't pay them for the network and airtime. I charged them back for all of the pain and misery went back through it. No legal time. Nobody called us back. Not a single thing. The legal department, nobody from their legal, nobody. Never heard from them since.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really glad that you guys, you and Ron have always been good about, talking to people about your faith, and it's been a centerpiece of the show. And one of the parts of the show that I actually look forward to a bunch is the very end when you go through whatever God lays on your heart. And I really just want to say thank you for doing that, because, we need to be able to talk about these things. And it seems like culture is trying to move in a direction where they don't want you to talk about stuff that might offend somebody, but it's like, these are things that we should all be talking about. If that's part of your life, it's an integral piece, you should be able to talk about it.
And there's one thought I have on that, Patrick, is to speak, to have speech, to have thought, you risk being offensive, right? To someone. And I mean, if we're just going to walk around muzzled in mass and never have a conversation about anything, I'm into big game hunting. That can be offensive. Catching fish can be offensive. So we have to push back. We have to.
Yep.
Yeah, because they'll run over you if you don't. And I'm being in the media business all my life. I'm a big believer of freedom of expression, freedom of speech, even if I don't agree with it.
So am I.
Even if I don't agree with it, you still have a right to share it.
Yep.
I understand and I respect that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that people need to remember, is that just because somebody says something you don't like doesn't mean you have to agree with them. You can just choose not to listen to that person anymore.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly it.
There's stuff that's put out all the time that I don't listen to and I don't want to be associated with because I don't agree with what their stance is. And, there's plenty of stuff that I do love to watch and listen to that I do agree with.
There's people that disagree whether you should catch fish on spawning beds or not, right? We can get in an argument about that.
Or,
you can easily get one on. You can easily get on that. But again, I like I said, I respect our freedom of speech and expression is an important thing. I've been in the media business all my life, and and people have a right to share that. I have a right to tune into it, shut it off, or do whatever I want with it. Not read it. I can exercise my own decisions. Yep. I'm not going to go in there and call their sponsors and say you shouldn't sponsor them because you're doing this. That I'd never do.
Yep. And I think that's something that needs to be heard. And I'm glad that I'm sure a few people will hear it on this podcast, but what you said is very true. We don't need, this cancel culture of things.
Right.
People need to be able to share, and people need to be adults about it and mature enough to handle it and choose what they want to listen to and what they don't. I mean, it's really part of the backbone of what our country was supposed to be about. And,
Amen to that.
Anyway,
yeah, for sure.
I do want to change gears just a little. A guy that's been really influential in my life on fishing is Pat O'Grady. I met Pat, it's probably been 12, 13 years ago, and he was getting his company started, and I jumped in and helped him out with PK Lures, and he had told stories about you coming out to Wyoming and doing some fishing. I remember reading in the walleye wisdom books about Semino and a few things, so I just wondered if you could share a little bit about coming out to Wyoming.
The western states are so different than northern Minnesota or Ontario. It's a whole different world. And you mentioned alluded earlier, one thing that I had to get used to was the never-ending wind.
Oh, man.
Never-ending wind. And I mean, if you're going to fish there, then, you better get used to wind. Better not bother you. Better to rig the boat right to handle it, and be in a safe piece of equipment to handle wind. Because it seems. I don't know if you guys ever go through 3 straight days in a row where you will have a calm day.
Never happens.
I don't think it'll ever happen.
Al, I go to archery shoots and I have people say, well, I'm not shooting in the wind. And they start complaining, oh, the wind's blowing. I say, well, you come to Wyoming, if you don't shoot or hunt in the wind, you just don't go hunting.
A joke on the PWT, when we go to the Dakotas as an example, you look at the weather report the night before, and they say the wind will be from 15 to 25. That means it's going to be 40 plus. It's going to be 40 mile an hour plus. That's what you're going to get.
Oh boy, that's the truth. Well, and you talk about Semino. That is one of the windiest places, I think, in the lower 48. I mean, the wind speeds on that reservoir are ridiculous, but I'll tell you, the fishing is phenomenal.
How many wind turbines have they put around it?
Yeah, they've put a lot of wind turbines around that sucker.
For good reason. But, those western reservoirs grow phenomenally big fish.
Hey, we're trying to keep that a secret, Al.
Oh, man. I mean, these Donkey Kong fish, it's amazing. Is amazing. And even I'm a smallmouth nut. I love smallmouth fishing. The world of smallmouth fishing is popular as it's become. The tournament organizations that they come up north and they had a taste of smallmouth fishing in the Great Lakes, and now they're coming everywhere, to experience it. And the tournament fishermen love it. The smallmouth fishery that exists west of the Mississippi River is still some of the most unexplored smallmouth fishing in North America, the systems. Yep. And it is west of the river. The western states, many of those reservoirs got phenomenal smallmouth fishing.
I like to tell this story. I've told it a couple times. There's a river in Oregon. I won't give the name, but I'll email it to you. We drift boat floated it one day, and I hooked 60 smallmouth in a day, and I got tired of jigging for them, so I put on a mouse pattern I tied, and I caught, half a dozen smallies on a mouse pattern, just throw it right against the bank and start stripping it out, and that river, this drift boat only, so no motorboats, and that can be a lot of fun.
No, I mean, they're sparkling gems out there. And some of the bigger systems, you take the Missouri River system as an example. You got Fort Peck, you got Sac, you got Oahe. These are massive bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
Massive systems. And there's spots in there that the smallmouth. There's coves that they won't see an angler in there all year.
Yep.
For small. Nobody will be there.
Fort Peck.
Remote and hard to get to.
Yeah, Fort Peck is one of the most remote fisheries I've ever been to, and I'll tell you what, there have got to be miles and miles of shoreline that never get fished, and I mean, there's massive fish in there.
In the schools, when you get up there and run way up that even the dry arm, the short, that arm is about 40, I think that's 40 miles long.
Yeah.
And then you got that main arm is like 160 miles long. There's and very few accesses.
Oh yeah.
You're right. I remember we had a PWT tournament there, and what really got my attention on the smallmouth, Parsons weighed in. No, it was Cabayas. They ran way. He brought the smallmouth in with his bag of fish, so we could weigh it. It was like a 6'3" or a 6'4". This was that smallmouth. He wanted to weigh it on a scale in macro. I didn't smallmouth way up in the summer since I couldn't even pull a bottom out. We had to leave some of the structures just as the smallmouth were driving us crazy.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of them in there. That's an incredible fishery.
Like you said, they're miles up. It is the most untouched, massive area of untouched smallmouth fishing in those three reservoirs there. Not to mention some of the other. There's one in Idaho. I forget that one that. They believe. I think they believe the next state record for sure come out of there. I can't remember the name of it. If you said it, I would know it.
Yeah, there's some fantastic fisheries out here, and I know just in Wyoming alone. I mean, you've got a number of really good reservoirs for walleye, and a couple for smallmouth that are really significant, and a whole bunch that are good for trout of various species. And of course, you got Flaming Gorge with those humongous lake trout, and that's that's an incredible fishery too.
Well, we touched on it earlier.
In the gorge, isn't there smallmouth in there?
Yeah, they've kind of taken a dive. They think that the burbot that made their way there somehow, somebody moved burbot down there into that drainage from up probably around this area, and they just haven't done as well. They were doing really well in the early 2000s. I used to go down there with my dad, and we'd catch some up to 4 or 4.5 pounds, and now it's pretty hard to find them. They're still there. They're just not in the quantity that they used to be.
Well, something happened environmentally then.
Yep.
So there's something to be said for that. When I grew up steelhead fishing, you'd spend a lot of hours. And when you finally hook into one of those 30, 40-inch fish, I mean, they take you for a ride for a while, but you can fish for 2, 3, 4 days before you even catch one, hook one.
Yeah, before hook up.
You go smallie fishing, and I mean, those fish are so dang aggressive.
They're fun.
It's fun. So
that's one of the beauty of them. Yeah.
Yep. There's a little reservoir here in Wyoming that kicks out, around 5-pound fish pretty regularly. And I went there with a buddy of mine one time, and we were fishing topwater. I think between Josh and I, we both got probably 80 fish apiece, just fishing little poppers on the surface, and it was just a lot of fun. And then that thing that you talked about, Al, that happens in Wyoming happened, and the wind came up and was blowing really, really hard, and we had to get off of there. But
you're holding to the gunnel of the boat for your life. You got your jacket on. And we
got wet. I'll tell you that much. We got wet. But
so Al, what's next? What's in the future? What are you planning? What's coming up? What should we be watching for?
I'm getting a little long in tooth here. The age is starting to show. I'm slowing down a little bit. I tell Jeremy and Jimmy, we go muskie fishing. You got me for 4 hours. I ain't going to go on a 10-hour marathon throwing 2-pound rubber bait. That ain't going to happen.
You're only as old as you act, Al, just so you know.
Well, I'm going as strong as I can. My body doesn't want to. My body don't want to receive that. There's things that are wearing down a little.
I think that's wisdom speaking too.
There's a little of that in there too. So I have to pick and choose a little bit more. But I still love it. I love the game. As long as I can contribute to this sport in a positive way, I'm going to do it. I'm not gonna quit. I'm not gonna retire, but I am gonna cut back. And I mean by cutting back, I want to do more fun fishing on the shows. Jimmy, Jeremy, the staff, and other people we work with. I'd like to see Troy get a little more involved with this stuff. These guys you pick up the ball and run. I've been on the front lines long enough. I want to fun fish a little bit more. And by that, I mean, go do some things on places. A lot of them are small bodies of water that I'd like to go to and play around a little bit that I haven't had an opportunity to do.
And a lot of people filming don't understand that, when you're going fishing for the weekend without a camera crew, that can be quite pleasurable. When you're going filming for an episode, that can be, when you got to redo takes or when you just want to go explore.
You got to deliver the goods. You got to make it happen, man.
Yeah.
You got to make it happen.
It's work, and people don't. They sit in their living rooms and watch that and go, "Oh, well, they turned the camera on and went and had a fun time." There's a lot of hours behind the scenes when the camera's off of work.
And then there's it's the dressing. A lot of times, a lot can happen on a hot bite fast. But then when you dress the show after that, that's when you get the underwater camera stuff out. To fit the scene. Where the fish are coming in to get the right drone shots in the environment. Those all add to the editing and make it a little more exciting. The music tracks that go with it. Music is so subtle, and a lot of shows don't use music because you have to pay. It costs us $30,000 a year to use a music track.
So
you already have access to the music track because of the royalties on it. The different kind of
Al, my company's right in this is our very first go. My dad and I went sheep hunting this last fall. We hired a cameraman and we took him, and I'm learning very quickly of the shortcomings of we didn't get, B-roll shot here and this extra shot here and, getting that underwater shot or that overhead shot that you need. And it's really hard now to recreate and get those extra shots that we need to produce the film that I want to produce.
To make a real exciting piece, you bet. That B-roll is gold, man. They're putting the actual easiest part, like in a fish, is actually catching the fish and getting that part of it done.
Yeah, catching the fish on film is the easy.
Around that.
Yep.
And then everything else is putting it together. It's all done in an editing suite, and the more things you have to complement the show, the better it becomes. B-roll.
Yep, and we're struggling and we're stretching it as thin as we can.
So, but it's fun, man. It's fun. It is a lifestyle worth living. Believe me. If you could do it and you find a way to get your niche in there and make a buck doing it, and this is a lifestyle business for a lot of people. If money is your motivation and you want to get rich, don't come to the fishing industry. There's a lifestyle. Some of us, you can make a good, comfortable living. But if money is to go to Silicon Valley and live in that world out there, if you want to be able to go out and enjoy the great outdoors and have a comfortable living this lifestyle, the fishing industry and the hunting industry, you ain't got a better choice. You will never regret it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I have one more question, and this is a really important question, Al, because on this podcast, we talk a lot about recipes and we talk about food.
Eating.
I'm sure you eat fish. I'm positive of that because it's so darn good. But what is your favorite fish species to eat, and how do you like it prepared?
It's real simple for me. I had it 3 nights ago. Again, it's perch.
Okay.
Perch. Yeah. Just fried up perch. Beer battered perch.
Oh, sounds pretty good to me.
Simple. A can of beans, some cream corn on the side with it, and it's like eating it's better than a lobster dinner. It's as simple as it gets.
It sounds
and
like
it is always good.
It sounds like you've been to an Edwards family dinner, because that's what we do at my house. The fried walleye, perch, and crappie, and some spicy beans. Oh man.
Fresh perch, it's still, you can salivate thinking about it now.
Yeah.
And my wife, she gets so excited when I say we're going to have perch tonight. Just for guys came back from a Leech Lake, and they were on a good perch bite. And she wants some, Al, I got some perch for you guys. Bring them over, man.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And again, I just want to say thank you again for coming on the show. We're really grateful for you. Not just the impact you've had on our lives and whatnot, but just I know how busy you are, and I'm grateful for you taking the time to spend with us today.
It was fun. I really, really enjoyed the opportunity, guys. Like I said, if I can't be fishing, the next thing I want to do is talk about fishing. And we're going about 10 below tonight. I enjoyed our time here today, and another opportunity sometime. In fact, you might want to get sometime you're looking for another guest. You should get a hold of Jimmy or Jeremy.
Yeah, that would be
they have
great.
different stories that are outstanding, and I know they'd love to with you.
Well,
Troy, you want to get to Troy? He can get into some real offbeat stuff.
Yeah, I love all those guys. Jimmy and his muskie fishing, Jeremy, those guys. I'm really jealous because out here, we just don't have access to purebred muskies. It's just we don't have them. So, I watch those guys and I watch those shows and I just sit there and I salivate and I cry a little bit because I really wish I could be there. But man, it's sure fun to watch those guys catch them.
When the fall muskie bite turns on, I'm telling you, they get like that it's happening after the turnover, and they get in that fall muskie. Their eyes turn glassy. You can't even talk to them anymore. I mean, they're like they're out in space.
I can appreciate that. Patrick knows when fall elk season rolls around.
Yeah.
David's gone.
David with fall elk, he's gone.
But Al, I'll tell you, if you make it out this way, we'll put you on some fish instead of just talking about some fish.
I love it, bro. I like it, man. I'm in.
Well, God bless you, and be safe on your travels this year. And I look forward to watching more of the Lindner media. So I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for the opportunities, guys. Everybody have a good, safe season out there.
All right, Al. Thanks a lot.
Bye, Al.
Bye-bye.
So I think we should keep rolling for a minute. We'll wrap this show up. I do have to tell a story about Al. I'm really glad he came on the show. And my first and only time that I've seen Al was at ICAST in 2011. And I was working on my laptop and I was up at the Las Vegas Convention Center and I was sitting on the side.
Which is a huge building, by the way.
Oh my gosh, it's enormous. I'm sitting up and kind of out of the way, trying to find a quiet place so I could get Wi-Fi and do some work for Pat O'Grady and PK Lures. So I'm working on it. And I see this guy come off the stairs and I see that it's Al Lindner. And I'm like, oh man, that's Al Lindner. I want to go say hi and say thank you. And so I get up and I start to head that way. And I kid you not, it was like a stampede. Like the ground shook, the sky got dark. There was all these people that just came from every direction and kind of cut me off. And it was like, okay, these guys are more important than me. These are sponsors. These are guys that have a vested interest in talking to Al. And so I'm like, I'll just wait here for a minute. I'm sure it'll clear out. It didn't clear out, man.
It got worse.
The mass of people just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then that mass moved down to where all the booths were. And I was like, well, there goes my chance to shake his hand and say thanks. But
gotta be quicker next time, Patrick.
I guess. But no,
you just got to spend an hour talking with him.
Yeah. And he's a wonderful guy. And he's made an impact on my life that, I can only just tell you guys that it meant a lot to me today to be able to talk to him. When I was younger, my mom passed away when I was 14. And after my mom passed away, one of my things that was kind of an outlet for me was fishing, just to get away, clear my head, get away from life. And my dad, I remember one Saturday, he took me down to Cabela's in Sidney, Nebraska, which is about 100 miles from Cheyenne. So we went to Sidney, bought some fishing gear, but we also went and we found that they had a rack of In-Fisherman VHS tapes and books. And so we picked up those things and brought them home. And I mean, I was in those things like you wouldn't believe. And, in those rough winters of Cheyenne that I keep talking about, with the wind and just the crappie fishing that was there. And I don't mean the fish. We would watch those videos and it would get us amped up for that next trip to the gorge to catch smallmouth, or that trip that we had that next year where we just clobbered the yellow perch and the walleye at Boysen. So, those kind of things really mean a lot to me. And just Al and just the way he is, just how he has so much fun, has so much joy around fishing. It's just so inspiring to me. And so having him on was a big deal, for me today. So it was great.
But, I learned that passion and positivity, right? Mm-hmm. Faith and fishing is what he said. But if you're not having fun in this industry, and he really did hit the nail on the head. Yes, it's nice to be able to get to a point where you could make a living at it. But if you want to make money, go to Silicon Valley, go create the next app or whatever the next thing is, and you'll make money and live that lifestyle. But, he touched on it. He's been in the industry for longer than about anybody, and he's still working.
Yeah. it's crazy. I believe he's 76 years old and he's still going, and just definitely an inspiration to a lot of people. And one of the things I wanted to pass along is if any of you want to try to win a trip to go fishing with Al, you can actually put in for that right now. If you go to anglingedge.com, which is their Lindner Media fishing page, so it's anglingedge.com, you can actually enter to win a trip to go fishing with Al, which I highly recommend you at least try.
That'll be in the show notes.
Yep. So I'll have that there. And then, of course, go check out their website. I mean, they have so much information on so many different species of fish. It's kind of mind-blowing because there's just tons of it. And you can order DVDs and a number of other things, but definitely support them. They're a great family, great group of people.
Definitely take a kid or a new person with you fishing.
Yes.
Go pick smallies.
Yeah,
and go catch some.
And buy them some of these DVDs or show them their YouTube channel for Angling
Leftover
Edge.
magazines.
Get them excited. In fact, last night before doing this and stuff, I showed the kids, I said, do you want to see who we're going to have on the podcast? And the kids were like, yeah, I do. And so I pulled up YouTube and just played one of their walleye videos, and they were like, oh man, that's really cool, Dad. And, and they were all excited. So definitely get people inspired, get them out there.
That's the whole goal, Patrick.
Exactly. So again, thanks to everybody for listening to this podcast. It doesn't happen without support of our listeners, and David and I definitely appreciate it.
We do. Sorry you have to listen to me some days.
Or me, for that matter. Some days I'm not all there. But definitely go to our website. We have show notes. We have a lot of different episodes on tons of topics. Bears and elk and walleyes, you name it. We've got a little bit of everything. And then, of course, you can check us out on the social media.
If you want to support us, go get your RADcast hat.
Get a hat.
We'll ship it to you. They're pretty cool.
They're pretty sharp. And, of course, go out and subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or any of those places that you get your podcasts, subscribe to the podcast, like the podcast. Please definitely leave us a review.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Yeah. So anyway, just want to say thank you again. Again, check us out at radcastoutdoors.com.